what if everything you've been told about success is actually making you weaker?
More hustle, more grind, more pressure. That's the formula, right?
But what if I told you the world's highest performers don't rely on intensity, they rely on stability?
Not chaos, not burnout, but calm, controlled excellence.
And the real secret, it's not about pushing harder, it's about standing stronger when everything around you is falling apart.
Today, we're diving into a way of excellence that isn't loud, flashy, or extreme, but it might completely change how you think about success forever.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Book Podcast Zone. We're just so thrilled you are joining us today because, look, we know exactly what it feels like out there right now.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it is March 2026, and the landscape is, well, let's just call it what it is. It's relentless.
Relentless is the perfect word for it.
Right. You are likely feeling this immense, just crushing weight of information overload, the constant pings on your devices, the unending demands on your time.
And that expectation to just be on 24 hours a day.
Exactly. It feels like the world is spinning faster every single month, and the only advice anyone ever seems to hand us is to just, run faster.
Drink more caffeine, sleep less.
Hack your productivity, yeah, just to barely keep your head above water.
Which is exactly why we are unpacking this specific material today. We have in front of us this comprehensive roadmap, a really deep, methodical breakdown of all 12 chapters from the incredibly timely book, The Way of Excellence.
Which was just released this past January, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we are taking the core insights from every single chapter of this text to build out a complete, actionable, and sustainable framework for success.
And by sustainable, I mean a way of operating that doesn't leave you as a hollow shell of a human being by the time you actually reach your goals.
Right, because that's the trap. So consider this conversation an absolute scientifically backed antidote to burnout.
We're going to unpack this entirely, starting right off with Chapter 1, which is redefining excellence and why we need it.
And the source material comes right out of the gate, swinging against modern hustle culture.
Oh, it really does.
Yeah.
It argues that our working definition of excellence is fundamentally broken. It is absolutely not about chasing perfection.
No, not at all.
It's not about an endless bleeding edge grind, and it's certainly not about accumulating external applause.
Right. Instead, it defines true excellence as feeling deeply alive, growing into your best self, and making a meaningful contribution.
Which is, I mean, it's a radical shift in perspective, mostly because it completely moves the target.
It does. We are so heavily conditioned by society to view excellence as a destination. It's a trophy, it's a C-suite job title.
Or a specific, highly visible number in an investment account.
Exactly. But the source material frames it entirely as a state of being. It's an internal posture.
An internal posture, I like that.
Yeah, and when you adopt this posture, it acts as a fortress against the distraction and exhaustion of the modern world.
Okay, let's unpack this with a visual because I think the contrast is where this really clicks for people.
Let's do it.
Think about a Wall Street day trader here in the U.S. Picture them in downtown Manhattan, sitting in a room just saturated with the blue light of 6 glowing monitors.
Oh, man. Yeah, I can picture it.
They are running on maybe 4 hours of broken sleep, fueled entirely by double espressos, nicotine patches, and sheer adrenaline.
Just absolute chaos.
Right. And they're executing massive trades, making millions of dollars. On paper, society calls that peak excellence.
Sure, by traditional metrics, absolutely.
But their cortisol levels, their stress hormones, they're constantly through the roof. Their nervous system is screaming.
It's completely unsustainable.
Exactly. Eventually, a massive physical and mental crash is biologically inevitable.
All right.
Now, contrast that image with a local community organizer in Chicago. This person works steadily, day in and day out, over decades, navigating complex local politics to revitalize a single neighborhood block by block.
It's not flashy at all.
No, there are no million-dollar bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a deep, sustainable aliveness to what they do.
I think that's a really poignant example. But let's actually look at the mechanics of why that contrast exists. It's not just that, one is greedy and one is noble.
Right, it's deeper than that.
It's about the fuel source.
Mm-hmm.
The day trader is relying on raw intensity, which is inherently finite. You can only burn the physiological candle at both ends for so long before your adrenal glands simply stop responding.
Right, they just give out.
Exactly. The Chicago community organizer, though, is relying on stability and a deep intrinsic connection to the work itself. They are still striving, they still have massive ambition to change their city.
But their ambition is fueled by alignment, not panic.
Bingo.
But I have to push back here for a second because this sounds wonderful in a philosophical sense, but we live in a highly competitive, metrics-driven world.
We do.
If you aren't chasing the applause, the promotions, the external milestones, how do you actually know you're achieving anything?
That's the big question.
Doesn't the world measure us by what we produce? I mean, if we just focus on feeling alive and internal alignment, aren't we risking falling behind our peers who are perfectly willing to grind it out?
This raises a vital point, and it is the exact trap the author warns against right in this first chapter. It's the trap of external validation.
Okay, break that down.
Here is why external applause is a fundamentally unreliable metric for your life. It is entirely out of your control.
Oh, well, yeah.
If your definition of success requires someone else, a boss, a market, an algorithm, a crowd, to clap for you, you have effectively handed over your emotional stability to an audience that is fickle, easily distracted, and largely looking out for their own interests.
So you're just at their mercy.
Exactly. True excellence has to be internal because internal metrics are the only things you can govern.
Right.
When you tie your metric of success to continuous growth, to the integrity of how you show up to do the work, regardless of how it is received, the noisy, high-pressure world loses its grip on you.
That makes a lot of sense. You become practically bulletproof to the chaos because your scorecard is kept in your own pocket, not on a public billboard.
Beautifully said. It's about taking the locus of control back.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We want you to examine your own life today. Look at the things making you anxious. Are you exhausted by a version of success that isn't actually satisfying you, even when you achieve it?
Are you running the day trader's highly volatile race when your mind and body are begging for the community organizer's stability?
It's a profound diagnostic question to start with, and it sets the foundation for understanding how our bodies actually react to these different types of pressure. Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and let's continue to the next.
Moving right into Chapter 2, which is the biology of excellence. This is where the material shifts from philosophy into the hard physical reality of how our bodies are constructed.
Which I love, getting into the science.
Yeah, the text makes a fascinating, scientifically backed claim here. It says humans are biologically wired to strive and grow. Pursuing excellence isn't something that is supposed to drain us. It is biologically designed to energize us.
I really appreciate this section because it stops talking about mindset and starts talking about biochemistry.
Exactly.
The text makes a very clear, sharp distinction between healthy striving and exhaustion-inducing striving. It argues that we have to work with our biology, not fight against it.
Right, it's about alignment again.
Think about Olympic athletes training at high altitudes out in Colorado at the Olympic Training Center. They are pushing their human bodies to the absolute limits of physical endurance.
Oh, for sure.
But they don't just run up a mountain until their leg bones literally suffer stress fractures. They don't push blindly.
No, they'd never make it to the games if they did.
Right. They carefully monitor their vitals, their heart rate variability, their sleep architecture, their nutrition. They train specifically to optimize their biological responses. They're striving, yes, but it is deeply calculated and biologically sound.
Exactly, and let's drill down into what that calculated striving actually means on a cellular level.
Please do.
What those athletes are doing is applying a specific biological stressor, eustress, or positive stress, and then deliberately allowing the body to enter an adaptation phase.
Okay, stress then adaptation.
Right. During that adaptation phase, muscle fibers rebuild stronger and cardiovascular capacity expands. That cycle of stress then adaptation is healthy striving.
Okay, so what are the rest of us doing wrong?
Well, exhaustion-inducing striving, which is what most corporate workers do, is applying the stressor continuously, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, without ever allowing the nervous system to shift into the adaptation phase.
Oh wait, I have to challenge this underlying premise just a little bit.
Go for it.
I get that we are wired to survive, to find food, to build shelter, to escape predators. But are we really truly biologically wired to strive for excellence?
You're skeptical.
Honestly, isn't it human nature to just seek comfort? I mean, our ancestors conserved calories and energy whenever they could because starvation was a constant threat. Given the choice today, most of us would default to the couch, a blanket, and a streaming service. Isn't striving actually fighting our nature?
It's a completely fair observation, but what's fascinating here is the underlying neural chemistry of motivation. You're right that we are wired to conserve energy when idle, but we are also wired with a highly complex dopamine system that rewards seeking, exploring, learning, and overcoming
But
obstacles.
we're like problem-solving machines.
We are problem-solving machines. Here is the mechanical difference. When we engage in healthy striving, where we have agency and are pursuing a meaningful challenge, we activate completely different physiological pathways than when we are in panic-driven hustle.
Wait, break that down. How is the chemicals different?
Okay, so when you are in panic-driven hustle, racing to meet an impossible deadline because you're afraid of being fired, your brain is bathing in cortisol and adrenaline.
The stress hormones.
Right, those are fight or flight chemicals. They are designed for short, intense bursts to help you physically run away from a predator. They are toxic to the body if sustained for weeks.
Which is why we all feel so awful.
Exactly. However, healthy striving, where you are voluntarily challenged and feel a sense of autonomy, releases dopamine paired with acetylcholine.
Acetylcholine, okay.
Yeah, acetylcholine sharpens your cognitive focus, while dopamine provides a feeling of forward momentum and reward. Together, they literally generate a feeling of sustained, calm energy.
Wow.
So when you align your goals with these natural human growth patterns, the pursuit itself physically creates energy in your brain rather than depleting your adrenal glands.
That is such a crucial, life-changing distinction. It's the difference between running because you are terrified of the bear chasing you versus running because you are excited to see the view from the top of the mountain.
Perfect analogy.
Your legs are moving in both scenarios, but your internal chemistry is completely different. So for you listening, we challenge you to notice how your body actually feels during your daily tasks today. Check in with your physical sensations. Are you energized and locked in by the challenge of the work, or are you physically drained, tight-chested, and exhausted by an artificial, fear-based pressure you or your environment have created?
It is a biological diagnostic tool you can use every single day to measure if you are on the path of excellence or the path to burnout.
Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and let's continue to the next.
That leads us seamlessly into Chapter 3, the psychology of excellence. Now that we understand the biological hardware, we have to look at the psychological software, the mental aspect of growth.
Makes sense.
The source material highlights the severe, pervasive dangers of chasing quick dopamine hits and tying our core self-worth to specific, volatile outcomes.
The text is unapologetically clear that the ultimate goal here is to build steady, unshakable confidence and long-term growth without the constant mental noise and anxiety that plagues most of us.
Right.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. Look at Silicon Valley. You have entire massive campuses filled with some of the most brilliant tech developers, behavioral psychologists, and neuroscientists on the planet.
Yeah, the smartest people in the room.
And what is their sole job? To build applications designed to hijack our evolutionary biology and give us constant, unpredictable pings of cheap dopamine.
Like on a photo, a new follower notification.
Exactly. The little rewarding sound when you check off a task in an app. They use variable reward schedules just like slot machines. We've been trained like Pavlov's dogs.
We really have.
And the tragedy is, we have started to treat our own real-life achievements the exact same way. We're just desperately waiting for the next career ping to validate our existence.
That is precisely the mechanism at play, and it creates an incredibly fragile psychological state. Let's look at the mechanics of outcome dependence.
Okay.
When you tie your identity and your self-worth to the outcome, to the ping, you are handing over your psychological safety to randomness. If you launch a project and it succeeds, you feel like a god.
Right.
But if the market shifts, or a competitor launches something better, or the outcome is simply bad, you don't just feel like you experienced a failure, your brain tells you that you are a failure.
Oof, that's heavy.
Your identity crumbles because it was structurally dependent on external applause.
I understand the danger, but let me interject. Dopamine is a powerful, necessary motivator. If we stop chasing those quick hits, if we stop caring about the wins, won't we just lose our drive entirely? I mean, how do we actually build any sort of confidence without those visible, tangible milestones to prove to ourselves that we are making progress?
You don't eliminate the desire for a win. You fundamentally reprogram what your brain defines as a win.
Okay, how do we do that?
The source text explains that durable, steady confidence does not come from a string of successful outcomes. It comes from trusting the process of how you show up. You have to consciously shift your dopamine reward trigger.
Shift the trigger.
Yeah. Instead of feeling good only when you hear, "I got the promotion," You train yourself to feel that dopamine release when you say, I executed my daily preparation routine with absolute integrity today, regardless of what my boss thinks.
Wow.
When you detach your worth from the external outcome and firmly attach it to the internal process, you clear out all that chaotic mental noise. You are no longer riding a psychological roller coaster dictated by a market you can't control.
It's about taking the steering wheel back from the slot machine. You decide when you win.
Exactly.
So we ask you directly, where in your life right now are you tying your self-worth to an outcome you cannot control? Is it a massive project at work where the final decision rests with a client? Is it a relationship where you are trying to manage someone else's feelings?
Both great examples.
What happens to your anxiety levels if, starting today, you shift your focus entirely to your own process and your own integrity?
It is the only reliable way to build a psychological foundation that won't develop hairline fractures under pressure.
Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and let's continue to the next.
Now we elevate the discussion from psychology to Chapter 4, the philosophy of excellence. This is where the author connects the timeless, ancient ideas of a good life, ideas debated by Stoics and philosophers for millennia, with our hyper-modern digital realities.
The deep stuff.
Yeah, the core principle here is living your daily life in strict alignment with your deeper underlying values. Excellence, according to this roadmap, is about actively becoming the kind of person you respect, rather than just checking off a list of societal milestones.
I really appreciate how grounded this framework is. It doesn't leave philosophy in the clouds. Let's use a very grounded American analogy here.
Let's hear it.
Imagine a small, multi-generational family farm in the American Midwest, say Iowa or Nebraska. They have been working that exact same soil, weathering droughts and storms, for over 100 years.
Okay.
Tomorrow, they could easily sell out to a massive, faceless agricultural conglomerate for a massive payday. I mean, life-changing generational wealth, a massive milestone win by society's standards.
Most people would take it in a heartbeat.
Right, but they choose to stay. They choose the grueling early mornings, the unpredictable weather, and the hard manual labor because their deepest core value is land stewardship. They measure their success by who they are when they are working that land, not by the size of their bank account.
It's a beautiful example, but let's go a layer deeper into why that farm family operates that way. It's not just stubborn romanticism. Values are highly practical cognitive tools.
Cognitive tools, how so?
Well, we suffer from immense decision fatigue in the modern world because we have too many choices. When you have clearly defined values, like land stewardship, it acts as a cognitive filter.
Oh, I see.
It eliminates the agonizing debate of should we sell or shouldn't we. The value makes the decision for them. They aren't measuring their success by the buyout. They are measuring it by their alignment with their own philosophy, which drastically reduces their mental load.
That makes sense regarding decision fatigue. But let me play devil's advocate here.
Go ahead.
Values are wonderful in theory, and they work great on a family farm. But let's look at the modern corporate world in 2026. Values do not pay the soaring cost of rent. Integrity doesn't buy groceries.
Sure.
If you are working in a hyper-competitive, cutthroat industry where everyone else is willing to cut corners to get the bonus, how do we actually balance this high-minded, timeless philosophy with the harsh, immediate reality of needing to survive and pay the bills?
That is the ultimate tension, isn't it? But if we connect this to the bigger biological and psychological picture we've been painting, it's not an either-or scenario. Synthesizing philosophy with practicality is actually the secret weapon of the highest performers.
Really? How does that work mechanically?
Here is the mechanism. When your daily actions are in alignment with your deeper values, the internal friction, the resistance to doing hard work, completely disappears. You don't have to drag yourself out of bed with a motivational speech. The reward becomes the very act of living authentically.
So the alignment is the energy source.
Exactly. That alignment provides a sustainable, renewable fuel source that merely hitting financial milestones can never provide. If you are only working for the bonus, the moment things get brutally hard, you will quit or burn out because the transaction isn't worth the pain.
Right, because the money isn't enough to justify the misery.
But if you are working because the work aligns with your values, you can endure almost anything. You can absolutely be wildly successful and wealthy in a corporate environment while being values-driven. In fact, you are far more likely to sustain that success over decades because your energy source is internal, renewable, and non-transactional.
Okay, I see. The philosophy is actually the engine that makes the practical survival easier and more resilient. It prevents the engine from seizing up. So, listener, We prompt you to define this for yourself right now, in your own mind. What is the kind of person you would actually deeply respect, completely, regardless of your job title or your bank account? Who is that person? And more importantly, look at your calendar for today. Are your actions today aligned with becoming them?
It requires a level of brutal self-honesty that can be deeply uncomfortable, but it is the prerequisite for everything else.
Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and let's continue to the next.
Which brings us to a really fascinating, somewhat unexpected turn in the material, Chapter 5, which is simply titled Care.
This one surprised me.
Yeah, the text goes to great lengths to describe care as a quiet superpower for excellence. It's not about being soft. It's about the profound, gritty courage it takes to care deeply about your work, your relationships, your well-being, and your future self in a world that constantly incentivizes apathy.
I think we often severely underestimate the raw courage it takes to genuinely care. Think about a highly dedicated triage nurse in a chaotic New York City emergency room on a Saturday night.
Talk about a high-stress environment.
Exactly. The healthcare system is strained, the hours are grueling, the volume of patients in the waiting room is overwhelming, and many of the outcomes are tragic. The easiest, most biologically natural coping mechanism in that environment is to build a wall of apathy.
Just shut it all out.
Right, just clock in, do the bare minimum procedural tasks to keep people breathing, detach yourself emotionally, and clock out. But the nurses who maintain true world-class excellence in that ER are the ones who find the immense daily courage to keep caring deeply for the humanity of each individual patient, despite the absolute chaos swirling around them.
That is a perfect encapsulation. Apathy is a defensive shield. It absolutely protects you from the emotional toll and the heartbreak of failure, but the cost is that it completely permanently cuts you off from excellence.
You just can't be excellent if you don't care.
You cannot be excellent at something you do not care about. The physiological state of apathy literally dampens the neural pathways required for creative problem solving and deep engagement.
But isn't that defensive shield absolutely necessary sometimes? Caring deeply sounds utterly exhausting. If you care too much in a world that is so full of massive, systemic, unfixable problems, doesn't that just lead straight back to the very emotional burnout we're supposedly trying to avoid with this entire framework?
This is where the author makes a brilliant, crucial distinction that we have to unpack. We have to differentiate between anxious attachment and profound care.
Okay, anxious attachment versus profound care.
Yes, the source material frames care as a superpower, not a liability, and understanding the difference is the key. Anxious attachment is when you care obsessively about controlling the final outcome, which, as we discussed in Chapter 3, causes massive anxiety and stress because you can't control it. Profound care, on the other hand, is caring about the quality and integrity of your own contribution.
So it's caring about the input, not the output.
Yes, caring deeply about the right things, your effort, your empathy, your skill, acts as an anchor in the storm. However, there is a second half to this equation: boundaries.
Boundaries. The magic word.
The absolute key to making care a superpower instead of a vulnerability is that your care must be bounded. You have to care for your own physical well-being and your future self with the exact same fierce intensity that you care about your external output.
So that ER nurse.
That New York City ER nurse can only sustain that profound level of care for patients if they are fiercely, ruthlessly protective of their own recovery time, their sleep, and their emotional boundaries when they leave the hospital doors.
Care without boundaries is just self-destruction wrapped in good intentions. That makes so much sense. So we ask you, have you been holding back from caring fully in your job, your creative pursuits, or your relationships because you're secretly afraid of being hurt, disappointed, or overwhelmed? Are you using apathy as a convenient shield? And is that very shield the thing keeping you from reaching your true potential?
It is a profound paradigm shift to view care not as a weakness to be exploited by a harsh world, but as a strategic superpower to be deliberately cultivated and protected.
Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and let's continue to the next.
Chapter 6 shifts us from the emotional landscape into the actual mechanics of progress, goals. But this is entirely about setting goals that actually serve your well-being.
Which is completely counter to how we're usually taught goal setting.
Oh, absolutely. The material aggressively pushes past the traditional corporate SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, and argues instead for targets that align with who you want to become. It argues that goals should stretch you just enough and, most importantly, bring meaning during the pursuit, not just at the fleeting moment of the finish line.
I think almost everyone listening has experienced the profound, hollow emptiness of hitting a massive goal and feeling absolutely nothing.
Or worse, feeling a sense of, is that it?
Yeah. Think of someone deciding to train for the Boston Marathon. If they absolutely hate running, hate the cold, hate the physical exertion, and the only reason they are doing it is so they can cross the finish line, get the medal, and post a picture on social media to impress their coworkers. Those 6 months of early morning training in the freezing rain are going to be miserable.
Just pure concentrated suffering.
Exactly, for a
Gotcha.
momentary transactional payoff. But if they set a goal that forces them to actually fall in love with the discipline of the daily morning run, the pursuit itself holds intrinsic meaning. They become a runner. The medal at the end is just a piece of metal. It's a byproduct of the person they became.
And that completely changes the psychological reality of the journey. When the pursuit has meaning, the daily friction isn't suffering, it's sculpting.
But hold on. We've always been taught the exact opposite by high-performance culture. We were told that if a goal doesn't terrify you or stress you out a little bit, it's simply not big enough. The whole 10x your life, shoot for the moon mentality. How do you find that elusive sweet spot of stretching just enough without tipping over the edge into chronic, paralyzing anxiety?
You do it by fundamentally deconstructing how we define the utility of a goal. Let's look at the psychology of the gap. Yeah. Typically, a goal is used as a rigid measuring stick to calculate your distance from a desired future state. Every single day you wake up, the goal serves as a glaring reminder of what you don't have yet, who you aren't yet. That inherently causes a baseline level of stress and inadequacy. The roadmap in this book suggests goals should be used as directional compasses, not measuring sticks.
A compass. Expand on how that changes the daily experience.
Well, a compass doesn't judge you for not being at north. It just points you toward it. Goals should exist solely to point you in the right direction and energize your daily actions. They turn mundane, repetitive daily tasks into meaningful, deliberate steps toward the identity you want to inhabit.
That reframing is massive.
The sweet spot of stretching just enough is found when the goal dictates a challenging but deeply engaging daily practice, rather than hanging over your head as an intimidating future ultimatum. You aren't failing every day until the marathon. You are succeeding every day you lace up your shoes.
A compass, not a measuring stick. That is incredibly freeing. Take a moment right now and reevaluate a major current goal you have hanging over your head. Is the way you have it framed stressing you out, constantly reminding you of what you lack? Or is it acting as a reliable compass, making the daily grind feel purposeful, meaningful, and aligned with your values?
Changing the function of the goal literally changes the chemical and psychological reality of your day.
Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and let's continue to the next.
Moving to Chapter 7, Consistency. If Chapter 6 was about the compass, Chapter 7 is about the walking.
I like that.
The focus here is on the unglamorous reality of showing up regularly when motivation is inevitably reliably low. The core principle is prioritizing steady consistency over erratic intensity. It unpacked how small, seemingly insignificant steady actions compound massively over time, creating sustainable rhythms rather than forcing us to rely on sheer brute willpower.
This is the ultimate scientifically backed tortoise and the hare chapter.
It really is.
It's like a master jazz musician down in New Orleans. They don't just leave their trumpet in the case for 3 weeks and then pick it up and play with furious, face-melting intensity, only when they have a paying gig on Frenchman Street on a Friday night.
That's just not how mastery works.
No. They are in their living room, practicing their basic scales, working on their breath control, adjusting their embouchure every single morning. It's a rhythm. It's a daily practice that happens completely regardless of their mood, the weather, or their motivation level. It is not a forced act of will to practice. It's just simply what they do.
And that daily, unsexy rhythm is the invisible structural architecture of their eventual brilliance on stage. They don't have to try to be brilliant. The rhythm has made brilliance their baseline.
But wait, let's talk about the cultural narratives, especially here in the U.S. We actively idolize the all-nighter culture.
Oh, we romanticize it completely.
We really do. We romanticize the hero who pulls off the impossible at the absolute last minute, the college student who writes the brilliant A-grade essay at 3 a.m. fueled by energy drinks, the startup team that locks themselves in a room and codes for 48 hours straight to launch the product and save the company. We make movies about these people.
Yes, the heroic hustle.
Isn't that kind of massive, concentrated intensity sometimes absolutely required to break through a plateau and achieve excellence?
Let's analyze the actual math and biology of that narrative. Yes, intensity might win a short sprint. You can pull an all-nighter and get an A on a single paper. But excellence is a marathon played over decades.
Right.
If we look at the neurobiology of willpower, specifically the concept of ego depletion, we know that willpower is a heavily finite resource. It is processed in the prefrontal cortex, and it biologically depletes throughout the day as you make decisions and resist temptations.
So it's like a battery draining.
Exactly. If your model for success relies on waking up every single day and forcing your prefrontal cortex into a state of intense, artificially generated motivation, you will eventually mathematically burn out.
Because the battery just runs dry.
Exactly. Rhythms and routines, however, completely bypass the need for willpower. When an action becomes a routine, the cognitive load shifts from the energy-hungry prefrontal cortex to the basal ganglia, which governs automatic habits.
Oh, so it uses a different part of the brain entirely.
Yes, it takes almost zero biological energy to execute a routine. By focusing on steady, small actions, you build an unstoppable compounding momentum. The heroic all-nighter that we idolize is usually not a triumph. It is actually the desperate result of a massive failure in consistency earlier in the timeline. Intensity is flashy and makes for a good movie scene, but consistency is undefeated in the real world.
So the real hero isn't the one sweating and shaking at 3 a.m. The hero is the one who calmly did an hour of focused work every day for a month and is sleeping soundly while the system works for them.
That's the real flex.
Look at your own habits right now. Are you constantly relying on random, chaotic bursts of intense motivation to get things done at the last minute? Or have you built a rhythm that carries you forward automatically, even when you don't feel like it?
Relying on motivation is a psychological trap. Relying on rhythm is the sustainable way forward.
Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and let's continue to the next.
Which brings us to perhaps the most critical modern challenge of all in Chapter 8, Focus and Attention.
Oh, this is the big one.
This is about cultivating deep, unbroken attention in a fundamentally aggressively distracted world. The source material emphasizes a crucial pivot. Instead of trying to fight distraction all day using your depleted willpower, you must aggressively design your physical and digital environments to support focus. It's about protecting your attention without feeling completely deprived or isolated.
I think this might be the most urgent, practically applicable chapter for all of us right now. The environmental aspect is everything. Imagine trying to write a complex, deeply emotional novel sitting at a wobbly cafe table right in the middle of Times Square with sirens wailing, thousands of people walking by, neon lights flashing.
You would just fail.
Completely. The sensory overload would completely destroy your cognitive train of thought. Now instead, think of a master architect in Seattle. They're designing a quiet, distraction-free home studio facing a serene pine forest. Thick glass, no cell service, just a drafting table.
Sounds amazing.
Doesn't it? They aren't relying on their brain's sheer willpower to focus harder than the novelist in Times Square. They literally built an environment that assures focus. The environment is doing 90% of the heavy lifting.
That is the perfect illustration of why relying on willpower fails against modern engineered distraction. Our modern digital environments, our phones, our open-plan offices, our browsers with 50 tabs open, they are currently engineered exactly like Times Square.
Yeah, by design.
They're designed by behavioral psychologists to interrupt you.
Right, and that leads exactly to my pushback here. It is so incredibly easy for a book written in a quiet study to say, protect your attention and design your environment. But let's talk about the real world.
Let's do it.
When your boss expects a reply on Slack or Microsoft Teams within 2 minutes, or you have high-paying clients texting your personal phone at all hours of the evening, how can you realistically design a distraction-free environment without getting fired, losing your business, or being labeled as not a team player?
It's the most common objection, and we have to unpack the concept of attention as your absolute most valuable, irreplaceable currency. The author acknowledges this reality. You are right, you cannot just try harder to focus while leaving your Slack notifications pinging every 30 seconds. You have to architect your surroundings, but it doesn't have to be a literal cabin in the woods.
So what does it look like?
The text points toward the highly practical concept of creating microenvironments.
What does a microenvironment look like in a corporate setting?
It means you carve out small, heavily defended, negotiated windows of deep attention. Maybe it's just 45 minutes on a Tuesday morning. But during those 45 minutes, you close all tabs. You put the phone in a physical drawer in another room. Most importantly, you communicate proactively to your team or your boss.
Ah, communication is key there.
You say, I am going offline for deep, focused work until 10 a.m. so I can finish this critical report for you. Call my desk phone only if the building is on fire. You set professional boundaries so that reclaiming your focus doesn't feel to others like you are depriving them of connection, but rather empowering yourself to do the high-level cognitive work you are actually paid to do.
It's about playing proactive offense with your time and communication, instead of constantly playing defense against an endless barrage of notifications. Take a hard, honest look at your primary workspace right now. Is it actively designed for deep, valuable work, or is it literally designed to interrupt you? Are your push notifications a convenience for you, or are they an electronic leash for someone else?
Your environment dictates your capacity for attention, and the quality of your attention dictates the reality of your life.
Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and let's continue to the next.
Chapter 9 tackles a subject that makes most high achievers deeply uncomfortable: renewal and recovery.
Very uncomfortable.
This is where the source material completely, violently upends the toxic hustle narrative. Rest and stepping back are not framed here as luxuries or weaknesses or rewards you only earn after you've worked yourself to the bone. They are essential, non-negotiable, biological, and psychological parts of the path.
Non-negotiable.
Periods of renewal are what actually fuel creativity, resilience, and future performance. The ultimate goal of this chapter is teaching you how to give yourself permission to rest without the crippling weight of guilt.
I love the agricultural analogy the author uses for this, because it grounds it in nature's undeniable laws. Look at the farming practices in the American heartland. For centuries, farmers have practiced crop rotation. They intentionally, strategically let vast, valuable fields lie fallow, doing absolutely nothing for an entire season so the soil can naturally recover its nitrogen and nutrients. If they got greedy and just planted corn relentlessly on the same dirt year after year, the soil would inevitably die, turning into useless barren dust.
It's just a law of nature.
We are the exact same biological system. We simply cannot produce a high-yield cognitive cash crop every single day of the year without degrading our own mental and physical soil.
It is a biological imperative, not a lifestyle suggestion. The laws of thermodynamics apply to human energy just as they do to soil.
But the problem always is the internal narrative, the guilt.
The guilt is real.
When I try to take a day off or even just try to sit on the couch and stare at the ceiling for an hour on a Sunday, my brain won't shut off. I'm just obsessively thinking about the emails piling up, the chores I should be doing, the side hustle I should be working on. How do we actually practically rest without guilt in a culture that never sleeps and explicitly demands more output every single quarter?
If we connect this directly back to what we discussed in Chapter 3 regarding psychology, that persistent, nagging guilt is the flashing red indicator light that you are still completely tying your self-worth to continuous visible output.
Ouch. Yeah, that hits hard.
You feel guilty because subconsciously you believe that if you aren't actively producing something, you have no value to the tribe. To overcome this, you have to biologically and psychologically redefine rest as an active, productive state.
Wait, how can doing nothing be active?
Because your brain is never doing nothing. When the source material says rest fuels performance, it means it literally, neurologically. When you step back and stare at the ceiling, your brain activates the default mode network, or the DMN.
The DMN, yeah.
During this idle time, your brain is actually working furiously. It is actively synthesizing complex information you learned earlier, forming new lateral neural connections, solving problems in the background, and repairing cellular damage. Rest is not the absence of work. It is the vital, mandatory second half of the work cycle.
The second half of the work cycle.
Without the DMN activating, you cannot have creative breakthroughs. True excellence requires treating your recovery with the exact same fierce respect, scheduling, and discipline as your hardest deep work sessions.
Rest is the vital second half of the work cycle. I want that printed on a t-shirt and handed to every manager in the world. Think about your own life, your own schedule. When was the absolute last time you took a genuine, disconnected break without feeling like you were cheating the system or falling behind your peers?
If you feel guilty resting, you aren't just making yourself miserable, you are actively, severely handicapping your future performance and creativity.
Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates. And let's continue to the next.
Chapter 10 brings us to a profound culmination of these ideas: mastery, mattering, and community.
This is where it all expands outward.
Yeah, this chapter explores the deep, enduring structural satisfaction of getting exceptionally good at something, which is mastery, and feeling like that skill actually matters to others. This specific combination is what builds truly durable confidence, helps handle devastating setbacks, and expands the entire concept of excellence from a selfish, individual pursuit to something that elevates teams, organizations, or a family.
This marks the pivot in the book from the internal to the external impact. Consider a volunteer fire department in a small rural Texas town.
Great example.
These men and women spend countless grueling hours mastering incredibly dangerous, highly technical firefighting and life-saving skills. But they aren't doing it for a corporate paycheck. They aren't doing it to get a promotion, and they certainly aren't doing it for individual glory or Instagram followers.
No, the stakes are way higher.
They endure the friction of mastering these skills because their community literally relies on them to survive on their worst days. Their mastery is intrinsically, inextricably linked to mattering. They're a vital load-bearing node in their community's safety net.
That synthesis, mastery deployed in the service of mattering, is where true, unshakable human fulfillment lives. Mastery without mattering is just a parlor trick. Mattering without mastery is just good intentions without the ability to help.
I completely agree with the sentiment. But let's look at the terrifying reality of the year 2026. Mastery implies dedicating years, maybe even decades, to a single focused craft.
Right.
In our incredibly fast-paced, volatile world, the data shows people switch careers every 3 to 5 years out of necessity. Generative AI is changing or obliterating entire industries practically overnight. Is the concept of mastery even a realistic, safe goal anymore? Or is it an outdated luxury from a bygone era? I mean, if I spend 10 years mastering a skill that AI can do in 10 seconds tomorrow, hasn't my mastery been a waste of time?
That is the exact existential anxiety of the modern worker, but the analysis the author provides here is crucial. We must stop thinking of mastery as just a technical checklist and connect it to community.
How so?
It's not just about mastering a highly specific technical skill, like coding a specific language or operating a specific machine that might become obsolete. It's about developing the meta skill of learning how to master things and combining that with the durable confidence that comes from knowing you can contribute tangible value to a group of humans.
The meta skill of learning.
When you combine the process of getting good at things with the deep intention of serving others, you create a massive psychological buffer against those exact macroeconomic setbacks. If you lose your job or your entire industry pivots due to AI, your core identity isn't destroyed.
Because it wasn't tied to the specific job.
Exactly. Why? Because your identity wasn't built on being a level 4 Java developer. Your identity is built on being a highly adaptable, useful, contributing member of a larger human ecosystem. You aren't just achieving for yourself, you belong to a tribe because you can help the tribe adapt.
You belong because you are useful to the people around you, regardless of the specific tool you are using. That is incredibly powerful and reassuring. We encourage you to find that intersection in your own life. Where do your personal skills, your willingness to learn, and your passions actually intersect with making a tangible difference to the people around you? Where do you matter?
Finding that intersection isn't just a nice thought. It is the key to psychological longevity and relevance in any pursuit.
Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and let's continue to the next.
Finally, we arrive at the culmination of the roadmap, chapters 11 and 12, integration and applying excellence in real life.
Where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly. This is where the theoretical rubber meets the practical road. It's about designing long-term environments for continuous growth, actively anticipating and overcoming common pitfalls, like those external validation traps and dopamine loops we discussed earlier, and turning all of these individual concepts into a cohesive, natural, daily way of living.
It's the stark difference between reading the owner's manual and actually driving the car in traffic. Think of the creation of the U.S. National Park System. Teddy Roosevelt and others didn't just sign a piece of paper, make a one-time grand declaration that nature is important, and walk away hoping for the best.
That would have been a disaster.
Developers would have paved it in a decade. Preserving that excellence requires immense, daily, unglamorous maintenance. It requires thousands of park wardens, strict rules, massive physical infrastructure, and continuous funding to keep millions of acres thriving year after year, generation after generation. Integration is about building that exact level of robust infrastructure for your own mind, your own habits, and your own life.
A one-time declaration of intent, a New Year's resolution, is utterly useless without the daily infrastructure to support and defend it against the friction of life.
So here's my final pushback, the ultimate unavoidable practical question. It's one thing to listen to this deep dive right now. It's easy to feel inspired while listening to a podcast, to see the crisp logic of biology and psychology.
Sure, it feels good right now.
But tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m., the alarm is going to go off.
Yeah.
You're going to be tired. The emails are going to flood in. The kids are going to need breakfast. Your boss is going to demand answers. And the absolute chaos begins again. What is the very first literal, actionable step to making this a natural way of living, so this entire philosophy doesn't just become another failed self-help attempt that we completely forget about by next Tuesday?
To summarize the overarching, unifying narrative of this entire roadmap, integration means explicitly anticipating your own inevitable failure. You will mess this up.
That's oddly comforting.
It's just reality. You will be deeply tempted by the shiny lure of external validation again. You will feel that familiar, frantic, chest-tightening urge to hustle, to pull the all-nighter, and to burn yourself out just to feel productive. The very first actionable step tomorrow morning is simply developing the meta-awareness to catch yourself in the act.
Just noticing it.
Right. When the panic sets in tomorrow at 9 a.m., you don't fight it with willpower. You lean on the physical environment you designed back in Chapter 8. You lean into the automated rhythms you built in Chapter 7. You recenter your decisions on the core values you defined in Chapter 4.
You let the system catch you.
Excellence, as defined by this book, is not a final destination you finally arrive at and put your feet up. It is a lifelong daily practice. It is a way of living. The first step tomorrow is just noticing when you inevitably step off the path, dropping the guilt, and gently, methodically stepping back on.
It's a practice, not a perfect. It's a direction, not a destination. So, listener, we ask you this final challenge. Pick just one single solitary principle from everything we've discussed over this last hour. Just one. Don't try to change your whole life tomorrow. Maybe it's turning off Slack notifications for 45 minutes. Maybe it's defining your core value. Implement it tomorrow morning to start building your own infrastructure of excellence.
Small, highly consistent actions performed within a well-designed infrastructure will inevitably compound into massive life changes.
Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates, and let's continue to the next.
As we weave the intricate threads of this entire discussion together, from the neurochemistry of dopamine to the philosophy of the American farmer, the core resounding message of this roadmap is profound. True excellence isn't a volume knob you just blindly turn up to the maximum until the speakers blow out and the system crashes.
No, it's so much more nuanced than that.
It is an intricate, beautifully balanced, highly tuned biological and psychological system. It requires respecting the limits of your biology, aggressively protecting your attention, having the raw courage to care deeply with boundaries, relying on steady, boring rhythms over frantic intensity, and ultimately connecting your hard-won mastery to a community that actually matters.
It is the absolute polar opposite of the chaotic, exhausting narrative we are sold every single day by a society that profits off our anxiety. We spend our whole lives running on a treadmill, trying to escape the terrifying feeling of falling behind, constantly looking over our shoulders at what everyone else is doing.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It really is. But what if the next time you feel that frantic, chest-tightening urge to push harder, the most excellent thing you could possibly do is actually to pause, step back, take a breath, and ask yourself, whose race you're actually running?
A question absolutely worth carrying with you into the quiet moments of your week.
Thank you so much for joining us as we explore this roadmap. We hope it brings you clarity, much-needed stability, and a completely new perspective on what it means to truly, sustainably succeed in this world. Take care of yourselves, fiercely protect your attention, and we will catch you on the next one.